I'm Dr. Leonard Matheson. Today we're going to take a look at how the Occupational Information Network can be used by occupational therapists to get at something we call vocational executive dysfunction. ONET can facilitate the evaluation of executive function and work disability. There are three types of vocational executive dysfunction, VED, that are of critical interest to employers. Now, there are several other types of executive dysfunction, but these are the three that come up most often when we try to get people back to work. Time sharing, selective attention, and problem sensitivity. Now, neuropsychological assessments do not address these. Occupational therapists can, but they need to learn how to do it. So that's what we're taking a look at today. Occupational therapists can evaluate and improve executive dysfunction in work-oriented neuro rehab clinics. And OTs do this through the use of ONET, the Occupational Information Network. ONET has 21 cognitive ability variables, several of which have to do with executive dysfunction. Time sharing is addressed in ONET, the ability to shift back and forth between two or more activities or sources of information, such as speech, sounds, touch, or other sources. Another cognitive variable within ONET is selective attention, the ability to concentrate on a task over a period of time without being distracted. ONET also considers problem sensitivity as a cognitive variable, the ability to tell when something is wrong or likely to go wrong. It does not involve solving the problem, only recognizing that there is a problem. And so our case study today involves Joanna Kim, a 32-year-old acute care nurse with 10 years of successful employment. Joanna experienced a fall at work that caused a clavicle fracture and cervical spine strain, with disc protrusions and also a concussion. The clavicle healed, and she tried to go back to work, but after a few days had to call a halt to it because there were things that she hadn't anticipated that were causing her concern. She had bilateral upper extremity dysthesias, post-traumatic headache, and cognitive functional limitations in response to normal work demands. It was the cognitive functional limitations that were of most concern to her. She's a highly motivated person and wants to get back to work, but she's quite discouraged. Her neurologist sends her to the OT clinic for work-oriented neuro rehab. Now, what I like to do when a new client comes in is to start with a structured interview, collecting basic background information. That sets the stage for a second interview that we call Structured Task Self-Appraisal, STSA. STSA is going to be the focus of our talk today. As you'll see, STSA improves ecological validity in the OT clinic. It emphasizes a person-centered focus for evaluation and treatment, and it greatly enhances engagement of the client. STSA is a self-report measure based upon ONET. ONET is used by the OT to help assess the client's perceived strengths and weaknesses in specific job tasks. Another way to look at it is that it's an ONET occupational task analysis. We go to ONET online to collect detailed information about the tasks and abilities required for Joanna's occupation. So here we go. On ONET Online, this is the landing page for her occupational category. There are more than 900 different occupational categories. Each category has several job titles. In this case, the landing page provides us with a general description of the occupational demands and 5 different sample reported job titles. You might want to pause the video right now and go to ONET Online and go to this page. Once you get there, page down and you'll find a wealth of information. So what we're going to do today is take a look at the Custom tab. Within the Custom tab, we're going to be looking at occupation-specific information. Within occupation-specific information, we're going to focus on tasks. We're going to ask ONET to provide us with information about the core tasks in Joanna's occupational category based upon the importance of the task, setting a minimum score of 50. A score of 50 is arbitrary. Sometimes I'll use 40, sometimes I'll use 60. The range goes from 0 to 100. Given a minimum score of 50, ONET provides us with 27 tasks, 22 core tasks, and 5 supplemental tasks. So what I'd like you to do now is download and save the Excel spreadsheet. That's the XLSX format that you see at the top of this list. That's the information you're going to copy and paste into a blank interview spreadsheet that you'll find in the curriculum materials. So this is the Excel spreadsheet, and this is what the data look like when the data are copied and pasted into the blank STSA interview sheet. You do this ahead of time. It only takes a few minutes. So you're all set when Joanna comes in with the first of the 3 questions that are part of the interview. In a typical work shift, which of these tasks do you usually undertake? You go down through each of the tasks, and I think you'll find that most of them will be included or confirmed. If not, you may have actually selected the wrong occupational category. But let's assume that you've got the right occupational category, and you see that all of the core tasks, the 22 core tasks, have been confirmed by Joanna. The next step in the STSA interview is to ask, compared with how you were able to do these tasks before you got hurt, how do you rate your ability now? This is Joanna's self-perception, her own appraisal of her abilities based upon the few days she had at work that she struggled with. And you can see that Joanna was able to do about a third of the tasks without any limitation. She had slight limitation with about a third of the tasks, and moderate limitation with about another third of the tasks. The final step in the STSA interview that allows us to develop a focus on the tasks that we need to be concerned about as we start our program with her is to ask, which of these tasks are you most concerned about? And we go down through, and you see that Joanna has identified 6 of the 8 tasks that she had moderate limitations with, about which she is most concerned. So what you've done now is to focus what you're going to need to look at least as you start the rehab program. You may expand beyond these, in fact, you probably will, but for now, this is a good place to get started. One of the ways to interpret these data is in terms of their likely vocational executive dysfunction impact. In Joanna's situation, limitations in selective attention and problem sensitivity make it challenging for her to manage complex problem-solving tasks, particularly when interruptions occur. And that's going to be part of what you get from the interview. Asking Joanna for the 6 tasks about which she is most concerned, Joanna, what were the problems with this? And you're going to hear something like we have here. She's concerned about selective attention and problem sensitivity. In Joanna's case, fatigue and pain seemed to further exacerbate her challenges and made it more difficult for her to cope with the demands of her job. So why are occupational therapists the best professionals on the team to work with Joanna at this level, to focus on the abilities she's going to need to address to get back to safe and dependable employment? ONET does this for us. This is the ONET content model. It has 6 different large databases that are all integrated. The 2 databases that we're most concerned with are in the bottom right-hand corner, occupational specific information, and among the 4 different sub-databases, we're going to be concerned about tasks, which we've already looked at. In the upper left-hand corner, we're going to be looking at related worker characteristics. Of the 4 worker characteristics in ONET, we're going to focus on abilities. And the OT is the best professional to do this because OT basic training focuses on the relationships between tasks and abilities. ONET provides the structure to make that much more precise when we're looking at return to work issues. And it's not just the precision that helps, it's the thoroughness with which we can take a look at tasks and abilities and identify the needs of the client on a person-centered basis. To facilitate this process, I've developed the Cognitive Abilities Profiler. It's a macro-enabled Excel workbook designed to help identify key abilities that we need to address. Going back and taking a look at the STSA target tasks and using the CAMP to measure the 21 cognitive abilities in her occupation, we come up with a rating of the ability demand level and the ability importance level for 20 of the 21. In her job, spatial orientation is just not important, but the other 21 cognitive ability variables are important. So what do we do with these? Well, we're going to identify those in which the demand is highest, because it is with those abilities that Joanna is most challenged, most likely to be limited as she attempts to return to work. This is what we see here. Using an ability demand cut point of greater than or equal to 55, which the CAP provides, we've got 8 cognitive ability variables. What you'll notice, too, comparing this with the 21 cognitive abilities we looked at in the prior slide, is that these also tend to be the most important. And that's actually something you're going to see in audit. Almost always, the more demanding abilities are also the most important. So once you've done this, the CAP then provides you with behavior-anchored rating scale scores. This allows you to calibrate the tasks that you're going to be providing to Joanna in the clinic to the ONET ability levels. We're not going to get into how you do this right now, but you're going to find that many, if not all, of the tasks that you use in the clinic can be calibrated to ONET. I've developed some tests like the DCAT-2 that are calibrated, but there are many other tasks like the WCPA and so forth that can easily be calibrated to ONET. So the behavior-anchored rating scale scores for those ability levels are what you see here. So let's say that Joanna comes into the clinic for the 3rd session and you begin to evaluate her. And what you find is what you see on the screen now. She's adequate for 4 of the abilities, but not yet up to where she needs to be for the other 4. So Joanna begins a rehab program focused on these. And by the way, in this case, you probably need to enroll a speech therapist as well. Look at the first 4 variables. Those 4 variables are things the OT can easily evaluate, but therapy is probably something a speech therapist is better able to do. So after several weeks, Joanna makes progress. 6 of the 8 ability demands are now adequate. She has a shortfall with inductive reasoning, that's slight, but she's got a major shortfall with problem sensitivity, which is also the most demanding ability for her occupation. So what do we do with this? We've got a decision to make. We confer with our colleagues and the physician and decide whether she should continue in the program with us or maybe take a transitional position and work with us on a hybrid basis. Another help that the CAP provides is to allow us to compare Joanna's abilities as we measured in the clinic with other occupations. And in this case, the example I'm providing is diagnostic medical sonographer. And what you see here is that her abilities as measured in the clinic are at least adequate and sometimes above adequate for all of the 8 most demanding abilities that we're considering. So one of the options that Joanna now has available is to consider going back to work with her employer in a modified job, at least on a temporary basis, getting certified as a diagnostic medical sonographer in a hybrid program because she has such good transferable skills otherwise, and maybe working for the next 6 months, getting a good paycheck, continuing to recover, doing her rehab on her own or maybe with some consultation with you and the speech therapist to address the problem sensitivity issue. If she can improve problem sensitivity, and that may be something that you see happen on a gradual basis as she works with you in clinic, she'll be able to go back to her primary job as an acute care nurse. But what you've avoided here is other interacting factors that can become disabling, like discouragement and diminished self-confidence, and maybe even depression, all of which can substantially degrade her work capacity. So thank you for your interest in this. It's an exciting field, and ONET provides us with good information that we can use. For more information, you can contact me at this email address or go to the Matheson Development website to take a look at what else we have to offer. Thanks for your attention. Take care now.